Little Miss Muffet sat on her tuffet, eating her curds and whey. Along came a spider and sat down beside her, and frightened Miss Muffet away. This is another piece that I've been working on based on my trip to the UK last summer. And I'll explain everything to you while I show you how I made this little black spider. I started off with this little tiny scrap of fabric that I thought would make good spider legs if I folded it up. I don't know if I've mentioned this before. When I was a little girl, we used to live in the UK. And on this last trip, I went back to visit one of the places that we used to live in. I was very excited to find an Airbnb on Shakespeare Road, but not for the reason that you might expect. I was excited because when I was a little girl, we lived on the next road over on Milton Road, in this house, in fact. And that little pointy window up there was my bedroom window. Perhaps you can see how this piece here is a rather whimsical depiction from the inside of that window there. And I've put a couple of treasures on this shelf that remind me of my childhood in the UK. So I'm still working away on my spider legs here. And let's go back to my bedroom window there. This yellow fabric here that was from my friend Joanne immediately reminded me of the yellow wallpaper that I had in my bedroom when I was a little girl. And there, all my legs are now finished. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out two matching circles to make the body for my spider. And then I'll sew all the legs onto the inside of one of the pieces of cloth that I've cut out. And while I was in Hanwell, I went back to visit my old school. You know, it's a funny thing about memory. I remembered the school building so clearly, but I have no recollection of how I would have got to my school. And here's what it looked like when I was a student there. And I remember that I learned how to knit as a schoolgirl in the UK. We made a little stuffed animal. I don't have mine anymore, so I made this little replacement to live on my window ledge here. I also had my acting debut when I lived in Hanwell. One of the neighbors rounded up all the local kids to act in her performance. The play started out with her reading us a bedtime story, and a spider had a very important place in my part of the story. And now that I finished sewing on all the legs, I'm using this sparkly thread that I have here as part of my spider web, and I'm sewing that onto the body as well. I played Little Miss Muffet, who appeared like clockwork from inside this book. And now that I've sewn up my spider, I'm going to stuff it with those little bits of leftover cloth. I'll use the back end of a paintbrush to tuck everything into the body of my spider. And then it'll get sewn up. So that's the story of the spider in my piece. Another memory that I have is of feeling really disappointed that I did not get to wear one of the long poofy dresses that Little Bo Peep and Mary Quite Contrary got to wear. And apparently I still have a fondness for rather poofy, sparkly ball gowns, because look at all these photos that I took while I was in a place called Southall, which is not too far away from Hanwell. And I've added this figure here with her own rather poofy and sparkly gown. She still has to get her arms, and I will tell you about her in an upcoming video. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and I will be back soon with more stories about my trip to the UK, and I'll tell you about the lamppost as well.